are live. We're doing something different this time. I'm back live t- between videos, but today is more of an impromptu uh, live session. I don't have anything scripted. There's no real teaching. I'm more outlining what things have changed, what I'm going to be doing differently. As some of you who have followed this channel know, I posted a couple months ago that I was going to be taking a break and I was going to be working on a part of the book that I needed to finish the book of um, the search for God, right? The search for truth, and I had to do this section on evolution creation. And so I was working through that and I've done 3 or 4 pages. It's been a little bit more of a process than I would typically like. Anyways, I'm not done with that. But something has changed that made me decide to put a stream out and get back to live streaming. As many of you know, um, who follow the culture and live in the United States, a very prominent leader, cultural commentator was recently killed. Uh, a horrible tragedy. It's sad when anybody dies, uh, but I felt really saddened by this episode. This person has 2 small children, married young, 31 years old. As my daughter reminded me, he's the same age as my eldest child. Um, and so I felt this kind of paternalistic sadness well up in me, that almost brought me to the point of tears. We were driving down. My son is getting ready to go to college. This is our 6th child, our 6th one that's leaving the nest. And we were going to visit some colleges, and we were going to Knoxville, and we are going to go visit University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I just read the news on the way down there. I'm driving down. I read that he had been shot, and that's about all I knew at the point when we had left. And he had been shot in the neck. And I do emergency medicine, and shots in the neck are never good. Those are horrible. And from that distance, with a rifle, I pretty much knew that the chances of survival were very, very unlikely. Um, but anyways, I prayed. And we were with our small group before we left. We went to our small group Bible study before we drove down there. Again, didn't have a chance to check. Get down there. As soon as I pull in, said hi, gave my hugs, got everything ready, I went and checked it out and found out that he had died. And this just overwhelming sadness came over me. Many people brought out reaction videos and are, you know, enraged, upset. There's various different types of reactions, but my first reaction was to pray. Pray for his family, pray for his children, pray for our nation, pray for the entire world. I mean, that's what we should be doing. And people and you see some comments that what are thoughts and prayers? What good are thoughts and prayers? Well, if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, prayer changes things. He asks us to pray. He asks us to pray out and cry to the Father. And whether that changes something in uh, time, it changes something that God is going to do, or it changes something inside of you, or both, the change of prayer causes you to internalize something, to go inside of yourself and ask, what can we do different? What can God do different? How can we live in the kingdom and live something more godly? I'm going to put my posts up here. See how those work. Hello, and say hello in the comments. Hey, so one of the things that I decided to change inside of me was, in times of tragedy, you can either retreat and become so despondent and be in such despair and cry out, or you can reach out. We can change how we engage in the world around us. Now, I don't have a platform like Mr. Kirk did. I don't go out to college campuses and reach thousands, millions, whatever that reach was. But I can reach out to the people that I know, to the legacy that I'm hopefully leaving behind. And I felt that it was important to get back out and educate, speak about the things that I am doing, um, wisdom that hopefully I've developed over the years. If I have a child who's 31 years old, that tells you I must be a little bit older than that, which is true. We had our first child in the first year of medical school, so I'm a little bit older than 31. And hopefully, I've learned a few things over the years through many of the endeavors I've done, but the things that I'm most passionate about, the things I'm most interested in, of course, God, teaching the Bible, learning about who God is, what is God doing in this world, why is there evil and tragedy, and what is evil? What are these things? This is something that I'm passionate about, but I'm also passionate about other things as well. And my wife will tell you my passions burn hot for a while and then they'll often cool and they will get directed somewhere else. But there are things that have consistently burned very warm to hot throughout my life. So, religion, truth, those have been a big passion. But one of the other passions that I've always had were finances, investing, income. Even back, when I was a teenager, when I collected my comic books, I would put them in little plastic baggies, right? So they would be preserved so they could be something that would be an investment, when in my own teenage mind, that uh, that I could hold on to, not recently, but a few years ago, I actually sold the majority of my comic book collection and transferred that into gold. I bought gold. What was that? So it was right at the end of the pandemic. It was 2021. Things were running hot. Comics were flying off the shelves, and I just like, you know what? I've seen these type of patterns before. I'm gonna sell. And so I sold and I wound up buying some gold, for that. And for my endeavors, that gold has now doubled, right? Not to say that I am the world's best investor, but that has been a passion of mine, investing, collecting, those types of endeavors. I'm a big fan of science fiction, fantasy books, love those things, always have. What science fiction and fantasy does is it takes you into a world of imagination, but then it speaks to something about the human condition, something that we're dealing with, but you can do it in a way that the death and the anger and the outrage is something that, because it's in a different world, because it's not actually involving our world, that evil seems kind of remote and distant. And I think it's a little bit easier to analyze. Like we can think about it differently. At least I can. At least I can approach it a little bit differently. When the Klingons or the Romulans or someone like that does something evil in that world, you can think about it differently. It it doesn't become as personal. When we look at tragedies that are going on in our world, it can become very personal. And we can say things and do things that are very harmful or detrimental to other things. But when we speak about an assassination of um, one of the Romulans, what was it, Kittimer? I'd have to go back and look. That just kind of popped in my head. But you can speak about that type of assassination, and it is distant. It's not real. We know it's not real. It's something. Oh, sorry, Star Trek fans. See, now I just made some enemies out there for the Star Trek fans. But what we are dealing with, we are how do we respond? How do we act in response to these things? For me, Jesus is the one that changes it all. Jesus is the one who changes these things. And so we can then go out and talk to the world. That is what I'm going to be trying to accomplish. And I will be doing it more broadly. Before I did a lot of just Bible studies. Now, what I hope to do is to provide more wisdom, um, answer more questions, continuing on the live stream. So, whenever I'm on the live stream, that's part of the reason why I'm live streaming, because I want to be able to provide answers and answer questions for people. And it becomes something that's a little bit more, I don't know if you want to say safe, being on the internet. You can ask questions differently. When Charlie Kirk went out there and he answered questions for people, um, it could be very exposing, not only for Charlie Kirk, as we saw, but for the people that are there. There's a crowd around. Now, I've been in some different chats and live streams where the chats can even become toxic. People control. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to even be more rude. Um, that is a possibility. I don't have the time nor the inclination to drive to numerous college campuses, uh, to walk around onto the streets, and to answer those questions walking around. The number that you can reach and the number of people that are there on the internet obviously can be a much larger audience, although he was out on the streets and answering questions, and he still posted them on the internet and reached millions. But my plan is to be on this platform, and so it will be changing. Not only will I be doing teachings, but I'm also going to provide and talk about some wisdom of things that I've learned and regarding the world, but also finances. Um, it is a little bit scary thing to put out issues related to finances. But it's also scary to put out things about what you believe about the world and about Jesus. But I think one of the things that we need to look at is how can we be diplomats? How can we go into the world and speak about things that are true, stand up against evil, stand up against things that aren't right in this world? How can we change not only ourselves through prayer and reading the Bible, but how can we change the world? That's what I'm going to be hopefully changing. I try to prepare ahead of time, so I will be doing some preparation. This was completely improv, non-prep. This was just something that started um, on Wednesday that I've just been praying about. So I've changed my streaming around a little bit, and so now I'm using StreamYard. I'm streaming to Twitch and to YouTube, and one of these times, hopefully, I'll get Facebook up and running. Who knows? I hope to start to have more guests, um, more conversation, more talking that I will be able to then have more conversations with people. So if you're somebody who wants to engage through chat, put a question in there. I'm going to continue to just answer questions. But if you want to be somebody who wants to talk about these things, you want to be a guest, let's talk about ways that we can engage in further conversation about these things. My next step, my next thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start doing the finances. You're going to start to see, hopefully, once a week while I'm doing my updating for finances and some of the things that I've been doing and the investments that I've been doing, I'm going to be putting up there. That is different from me. I've wanted to do it for a while, been a little bit nervous about that, but I will be doing that. But I'm also going to continue with Bible teachings. One of the things I'm going to do is September 24th. I plan to do an 8-hour live stream that is completely engaged with discussing the topic of the rapture, the Jubilee, and the seven churches of Revelation. I'm starting to put together an outline of this 8-hour live stream that I hopefully can answer questions for people and Christians in particular. When the rapture, I don't think will happen on the 22nd or 23rd. If you're online, you've probably seen lots of that. I hope to engage with people, answer questions, and talk about when these things might happen, what we might be looking for. So that's the change of what I'm looking for in the channel. More engagement, conversations, but also broadening the topics into pretty much a Colon Wright channel, which are all my interests. So when a couple years ago, I put out one when I went to a movie with my kids, and it talked about it was an anime movie, and I talked about my insights into that movie. So you might see more of those things. That's what I'm hoping to do. Jesus changes lives, or Jesus doesn't change lives. That is an important thing we need to come to understand. God, the God of the world, the Bible is true, or the Bible is not true. You need to come to decisions in these binary questions of truth. What is true in this world? There is a heaven, there is an afterlife, or there isn't an afterlife. I watch tons of videos on near death experiences, and I have numerous interactions with people that die, their families. It is a hard thing. And I have to wrestle with that. That was one of the things that I had to wrestle with, death. Early on, my grandfathers, both of them, died by the time I was age 10. And I had to wrestle with that question of death. And by the time I was 13, I wanted to be a physician, a doctor more than anything. That was my override. That was what I was going to do. And that's everything that I worked for. So that I was in medical school by the time I was 21 years old. Because that's what I worked for. That's what I wanted more than anything. But I still was not a Christian at that point. Jesus changed my life. He showed me that through it all, I was not the paragon of virtue, the paragon of intelligence, that my own pride, my own desires were nothing compared to eternity and true love. This is how Jesus changes lives. This is one of the many ways. And I see it time and time again, from the person who comes in addicted to drugs or on alcohol, and you see them later, and Jesus has transformed their lives. I see it in lives time and time again. The change from this person who comes in high, intoxicated, foul mouth, shrunken away. Drugs have eaten away their skin with pot marks and all over, and their teeth have rotted. To the person that then goes through rehab, and I see them 2 or 3 years later and fleshed out, kind, changed, humble. That's what we need to be in the face of these overwhelming scourges. We need to be humble. None of us can escape death. Not a single one. What do we do with that? What do we do with that barrier, that time when it's going to happen? We either put our head in the sand, ignore it. It's not true. And we come up with our own reasoning, our own logic, because none of us have come back. Oh, wait, recently some people have started coming back and they report things. Many people have reported things. But the first one who came back, the first one who really showed it was Jesus. No one else in history has come back 3 days after they have died like Jesus has. He was the first fruits of the resurrection. Many people have come back after a few hours, after we do CPR and we're breathing for them and we're giving them epinephrine and we're trying to get their heartbeat back. Multiple people have come back from that, and they report. Go look at some of these near-death experiences. I was just watching one um, on a channel, and he was talking about these near-death experiences, and he talked about one where this guy had come into the hospital. He was being transferred from an outside hospital, and he came into this one. He was already intubated. He was already out of it. They were doing open heart surgery. His heart was exposed. They came in from another hospital. They put him into a room. They were working on him in a room. When he woke up, they made it through. This gentleman reported on the numbers on the top. We have these big lights at the top of rooms, right? That we can shine down so we can see inside the body because it's kind of dark, right? And he reported the number of, like, the model number, the serial number on top of the light. And he was able to recite it to the person who had asked him about this experience. the there's many near death experiences that are not credible, but there are many that are. There is evidence out there for afterlife. And my hope and my prayer is that each one of us will turn to Jesus Christ and trust him for our eternal life and our salvation. That's ultimately where our hope lies. It's not in money, it's not in gold, comic books, Star Trek. Our hope and salvation comes in Jesus Christ alone. Therefore, that's why I am going to expand out these things and not be afraid anymore of what people think of me, because I tend to be a little bit not out there, but I think about things and I try to analyze things, and it doesn't always resonate or make people happy. Um, because I tend to be, even though I can be passionate, I tend to be dispassionate in my analysis. And I'm not willing to have my toes. I am willing to let people step on my toes on things that I think are true, but I'm also willing to step on other people's toes on things that they think are true. And I think that we need to truly analyze things, information, data, whether that's on health, whether that's on wealth, but certainly in regards to biblical truth and who Jesus is. So I will also be talking about health matters. I am going to expand out and talk about some of these things regarding vaccinations and healthcare. Uh, I'm not super. I mean, not that I'm not healthy, but I'm not thin, right? I'm not the weight where everyone says that you should be. So sometimes I feel a little bit. You if you're as a physician and you're a little bit overweight, which I've been most of my life, you feel a little bit hesitant to speak to people on their own health and nutrition. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyways. Uh, I know what I need to do. I try to do it many a times, but we have to be humble in this regard. We need to be humble in who we are, in who Christ is, and reach out to Him because He's the one that saves. I pray for Charlie Kirk and his family. I pray that the only assurance of salvation is the person who knows who they are in Christ and Christ knows his own. His sheep follow him, and it's not always pleasant for society. It's not always pleasant for the people around them, but we're going to speak truth. And so that's how things are going to change on this channel. And I plan to do more live streams because I plan to offer more engagement. So if you have questions, things that you're wondering about, just things in general, right? It doesn't even have, it could be political commentary, it can be health related issues, finance related issues, Christian related issues. I'm going to start covering the gamut. Am I going to comment on cultural, social things? I don't know. I, I'm going to plan to do a lot more prayer about what I should be covering because obviously there's a lot of things out there, but I will be covering a lot more. And I plan to be more not necessarily consistent because my work schedule, but more diligent in just live streaming, even if I don't have anything necessarily prepared. I'm going to start working on having some videos, um, read news articles, various things like that when it comes time. So, anyways, 28 minutes. I don't really have anything else. I don't want to just talk to talk to talk. If anybody is out there and has questions, comments, thoughts, things that they just want to talk about, type them in the comments. I've been trying to see how it works. So if you're there, just put a 1 in there or a 2. I just want to see if this works. You don't even if you don't have any comments, that's fine. Excuse me. Because I'm using StreamYard and the comments are supposed to be there. That's why I put mine in there. So throw something in there if you are out there. I want to see how this all works. All right. Well, Jesus changes lives. And hopefully, hey, King Z, nice to see you again. Yeah, I need to get with you and talk to you about changing things and how we're gonna do things. I haven't talked to you in a while. Yeah, it is really sad about Charlie. Really sad about some of his commentary and Turning Point USA. All right, did you guys know much about that? Or did you guys get much news over in Ghana about Charlie? Was it in like YouTube or the newspapers? Yeah, I know, an 8-hour stream. Yeah, that will be new. I'm just I think that's just going to be a one day thing. It just because I don't know if you've watched it, but there's a lot of people that are talking about a September 22nd, 23rd rapture in 2025, and people have getting dreams and things. And so it's mostly for it's mostly that 8-hour stream is mostly that one day just to be on there to be talking so that people who have thought that a rapture was going to occur. Now, could I be completely wrong? Wouldn't it be funny that I sign up for this stream and I have it out there that it's ready and then no one shows up and that we've actually been raptured? That would be absolutely hilarious. I think I will be there, but that would be hilarious. Yeah, and X and YouTube and everywhere. Yeah, it's all over. Um, your first reaction is, well, I mean, first reaction was sadness, a little bit of anger. Um, I think the big thing is, come Lord Jesus is, so right. Liked how he confidently argued on topics. Yeah, yeah, I really liked how he commented on topics. Let me see how this works. Let me see. Hold on a second. I'm gonna see. Uh, yes, look at that. That's really cool. This was one of the things I wanted to see about StreamYard, and hopefully that's going to work. So yeah, right now I have one screen monitor, and I plan to get a second screen monitor so that I can make this stuff a little bit easier. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking about. Yeah, so I will. I haven't been on WhatsApp. I'll have to text you, and on WhatsApp, I'll have to figure something out. Um, Yeah, Charlie was out there. He had a lot of good facts, a lot of information. He made people really think. I think that's what we need more of. We need more of actually thinking through issues and topics. And doesn't mean that like if we talk about finances, I mean finances for me are going to be different from finances for someone else. Uh, Biblical truths are biblical truths. Um, Now there's biblical theories, so like rapture is not it is a truth, but it's not. There's different theories, and we don't know until it's going to happen. So politics, health, there's some things that are true, and there's some things that are theory. People can disagree on certain things. And that's where we need to be able when we really think about things. We really need to think about hey, which one of these things are true, and we have to come to a decision on truth. Like who is Jesus, right? We need to come to an understanding. There's a true definition of who Jesus is. There's a true reality of who he is as a person in his character, what he taught. There's a truth. Now, so there's some people that will argue, well, the Bible doesn't have it all. Well, yeah, I mean, even the Bible says if everything was written, about Jesus, even though the books of the world couldn't contain him or contain it. But there's of what we have, there is a truth and reality versus where is the economy going or what's the state of the economy right now. Which a type of government is better? Is communism better as the way China runs it, or is a republic better as the way that the United States runs it? And different people are going to view these things differently. Let's see if oh yeah, take it down. Cool. People are going to view those things differently, and we need to be able to have honest conversations about things, even things that we disagree with. But part of the problem is we get so worked up in our emotions about something we believe is true that people could disagree about. What I want to know is, what does God think is true? So let me just pose it this way. What type of government will be in eternity? What kind of government is Jesus going to set up? That's a really interesting question. Is Jesus going to set up a democracy? Hmm. Is he going to set up some type of communist regime? Is it going to be a monarchy? Is it going to be a kingship? Will he have advisors, or will he just tell everyone what to do? These are really interesting questions. And the Bible speaks to it. It doesn't say exactly, but it really hints at what that type of government would be. Does that mean that's the type of government that we should have on the earth? Should we institute a type of government that Jesus would institute? Right? So those type of questions. Those are the type of conversations that we should have. I think those are important questions to have. So, anyways, thank you, King Z, for putting that on there. I will be available. I will text you as soon as I get off here on WhatsApp, and we'll touch base on where we need to go going forward. For those of you who don't know, King Z has been super helpful on the website, againstallheresy.org. I have a lot more I need to do on it, want to do on it, but time, life, right? That's how we all deal with that. Yeah, exactly. So I do appreciate everyone who's here. This is what we're going. This is where I believe God's taking me. And I just pray and hope that many people have been changed by the incident and stand up because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's a sad, sad day when people die, especially young people, especially when they're killed for something that they think and believe. It's a sad day. But at the same time, we also need to remember what Jesus has promised. In all of this, how do we find the joy? How do we find the peace? Because Jesus has promised to be the Prince of Peace, to give a covenant of peace, that there will be no more war, that there will be no more death. That's what Jesus has promised. And I look forward to the fulfillment of that promise. That's where my joy is. And so, even though you're saddened and anger, we need to focus on that joy, that upward call, and that renewed earth, the new heavens and the new earth, and that promise that He will change in this world. That's where we need to continue to remember to be focused on. Jesus was killed, Peter was killed. Numerous apostles were killed, martyrs throughout the century and ages. I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk is in one of those camps. That's for Jesus to decide. But we know that multiple people have died for their faith preaching the gospel. Are we going to be bold preaching the gospel, or are we going to retreat? Are we going to hide away? I think we need to be bold. So, anyways, again, thank you. Thanks for putting those on the comments so I know this all works. And I look forward to the next live stream. I know the 8-hour one will be there. The other ones, I'm still working through. This is a 2-day, 3-day thing. Actually, it just came to me in prayer pretty much just yesterday. So, praise God. Thank you all for your time. God bless.